Hello, and welcome back to Mindset Matters. My name is Victoria Williamson, and today we're in my closet. Okay, we're trying something new. And I'm excited about today's topic. So let's just jump right in. I do have a couple things I want to chat with you guys about, which I might do like a little mid-episode break and see who the real ones are. And if you're still listening, I have something kind of like a proposition, I guess. So we'll get there. So today we're talking about delusion. The art of delusion. So delusion has become this really popular term lately, like all over social media. And what I've been seeing a lot of is like this idea that you need to be a little bit delusional about your goals in order to make them happen. Okay, we've seen celebrities talk about this. Shay Mitchell went on Call Her Daddy, and she was talking about her own experience with delusion, where before she booked Pretty Little Liars, she was doing bottle service in Toronto, and she was like, yeah, I wasn't a bottle girl. I was an actress playing a bottle girl. And she said that she was a little bit delusional in her kind of conquest of doing auditions, whatever, before actually booking her first big job, which blew her up to fame. So what I like about this concept of delusion is that there's kind of two sides of it. And my side of it is definitely more positive. Like the things I've been seeing on my feed is more positive. But when I was doing my little TikTok research about this topic, I saw a lot of videos kind of on the negative side of it where it's like, oh, so-and-so's delusional. They're girls who are super delusional that everyone loves them, like that sort of side of it. So I'm excited to jump into this because I think it's just a really interesting topic. So it's kind of on the theme of, manifestation, faith, right? Believing without seeing. And I've seen a lot of people talk about this. So obviously, delusion traditionally has a negative connotation, but it's kind of taking a shift with some people where they're saying, you know what, being a little bit delusional is actually what made me successful. So that's what we're going to jump into. And my question that I want to answer is, how delusional is too delusional? Because I do think that while a little bit of delusion is okay, and we'll get into definitions as well and why I think we call it delusion, but it's actually something else that already has a definition. We just like to be extreme in our society. So we're going to look at both sides, and then we're going to try to answer the question, how delusional is too delusional? I first want to look at some definitions, as I like to do. So we're going to define delusion. And these are like traditional definitions of delusion in terms of either psychology that I found on dictionary websites. Having false or unrealistic beliefs or opinions. Maintaining fixed false beliefs even when confronted with facts, usually as a result of mental illness. So these are very extreme. They sound extreme. So delusion, obviously, traditionally is very negative, right? But I think where today's society, where you have people saying like, oh, you have to be a little bit delusional, and people who are looking at delusion and spinning it more positively, to me really sounds just like faith, right? Because faith, the definition of faith is complete trust or confidence in someone or something, or belief that is not based on proof. So to me, delusion and faith could be used not interchangeably, but I think when you think about delusion in a positive way, you're really just talking about faith, right? And having faith, which again is very necessary. You have to have faith in yourself. You have to believe in your own goals. And faith to me is like believing without seeing, right? So you believe that you're capable of something. You believe in your goals, whatever goals you're setting for yourself, even though you can't see it yet. And so that's where I feel like people take what should just be a definition of faith and are calling it delusion. So let's kind of look at the two sides of delusion, because there's a more positive delusion, like I mentioned with the Shay Mitchell example of like her saying, yeah, I had to be a little bit like delulu, and people are saying like, yeah, you have to be a little bit delusional with your goals in order to make them happen. And not to be too rooted in reality, only because reality might suck right now, but it doesn't mean it's going to suck forever. So there's kind of that whole side of it. And then, of course, we have the more negative side of delusion, which, kind of going off of our traditional definitions of delusion, this negative side, I mean, the things that I saw were a lot about like, oh, the girl who's so delusional and thinks everyone's obsessed with them, or the people who are very unaware of reality and kind of out of touch. So there's kind of that sense of delusion as well. So what we're going to do now, I want to look at both sides, and I did some, I guess, TikTok research today because I was curious what videos were out there. And it's also interesting, kind of a side note, to see like what ideas I had coming into this podcast, and then what were a lot of the videos that I actually saw when I looked up the hashtag delusional. Because it just also goes to show that like your algorithm on TikTok only shows you one side. And a lot of the sides that I've seen was this positive side of delusion. But a lot of the videos I saw when I looked up the hashtag was like making fun of the actual delusional people in our society today. So just thought that was interesting. In my TikTok research, one video I had was talking about confidence. And this one girl was saying, you know, I really think the key to confidence is delusion. Like this fake it till you make it, but extreme. So believing, even if you don't really think it at the time, believing I am so pretty, I am so smart, I am so amazing, I am so capable, I am so confident. And like the more you tell yourself and you're a little bit like delusional about it, she said, okay, eventually you kind of start feeling it. And I kind of agree with this in terms of this fake it till you make it. I mean, I don't know if it needs to be the extreme that she was talking about and if it needs to kind of get to this point of delusion. But yeah, I think what she's talking about is positive affirmations, right? And sometimes I think those sound a bit cheesy when we first try them. But when you stick with something and every day you practice telling yourself maybe just one good thing or one thing you love about yourself, like the more you tell yourself, right, it's a habitual thought, it becomes something that you do start to believe. So I do kind of agree with her in that sense. And I've seen some other videos talking about confidence and delusion, saying that it's almost like this, you know, you just pretend that everyone loves you, or you pretend that if people don't like you, it's because like they just couldn't handle how amazing you were. Like I've seen those videos, which I think are funny because, I mean, in that sense, I don't think it's harmful. Like this kind of sense of delusion, or almost like you're playing delusion. It's like an act, and you know it, right? Again, this is deep rooted in like this self-awareness. Like I'm aware that I'm being a little bit delusional, but I'm allowing myself to be delusional to gain confidence. So that's kind of one example, confidence and delusion. And then the other thing I think about when I think of delusion, and a lot of videos that I've seen, is being a little bit delusional when it comes to your goals, right? So when you are working on something, you know, anyone successful at some point, or anyone who's done something like out of the norm, you have to think where they started to where they got to, right? It does take a lot of work. It takes a lot of, you know, grit, and it takes a lot of faith. And faith, again, I think people are using the term delusion to really describe faith. Because again, going back to the definition, faith is believing without seeing, right? A belief that is not based on proof. So when you think of delusion, I mean, yeah, it's really the positive side of delusion is, to me, is faith. So having faith in yourself and having faith in your goals. And I think having faith and being a little bit delusional of like, yeah, I'm going to be successful. Yep, I'm sure of it. Even though based on the evidence, based on where you are now, you can't really say that. Like it's not something that's true yet, but it's something that is going to come true. So I think that's where people are saying where being a little delusional in your goals of like, you have to be so strong in your conviction. Actually, I'm going to quote Danny Reed from my last podcast. Hi, Danny, if you're listening. Danny is a pro footballer, and one of the ideas he shared was his kind of delusion towards going pro. And he had so many challenges, so many kind of hardships in his journey of becoming a pro footballer. But he was like, yeah, I kind of held on to this idea of a little bit delusion, and I was so strong in my belief in myself that I just kept going. And what I loved about that is like, based on where he started, based on, all of these different obstacles he faced, a lot of people would give up, or a lot of people would be like, okay, maybe it's just not right for me. But he kept going because for him, he had a little bit of delusion, right? So definitely go check out that episode with Danny. Would highly recommend, obviously. Okay, recommending my own podcast. But it was a great conversation. Again, shout out Danny if you're watching or listening. But again, so that's kind of that positive spin of delusion, right? Where you have to believe in what's not yet seeable. And I mean, that's really what manifestation is, right? We don't just wake up and say, okay, now I'm going to manifest for 10 minutes. Like, that's not how it works. To me, manifestation and this kind of positive spin on delusion or faith is like, you almost have to act as if the thing you want is already yours. Like, okay, I am a successful podcaster. I'm a successful whatever. How do I act? What type of things do I do? What would a successful XYZ do? Because that's what I am, right? And you have to think of it as like, okay, acting as if I'm already the thing I want to be. How would I behave? How would I act? What would I do? Again, that's kind of like, delusion and confidence. I'm a confident person. How would I act? Well, I walk into a room, my head is held high, I have my shoulders back, and I present myself proudly. That's what a confident person would do. So even if you don't actually feel confident, act as if you do. And the more you do it, the more it actually manifests. Okay? So that to me is the positive side of delusion that I've been seeing on the internet. Okay, so let's go to the negative side because it's fun. It's funny. I saw a lot of funny TikToks and I was like, oh my gosh, these are good, right? So I saw one video of, a lot of the videos were making fun of the girl who's delusional that everyone is in love with her, or the girl who's delusional that after 15 minutes she thinks she's met her husband, okay? And they were all, kind of making fun of that side of things. And yeah, I think that is kind of a negative connotation of delusion, or someone who's so delusional and thinks that everything is about them, right? And thinks that no matter where they go, or any guy that talks to her means that they want a relationship or something, when it's like, that's not how that works. So that side of it, I think, has some merit as well. Because again, we go back to the negative definition of delusion, having false or unrealistic beliefs or opinions, or maintaining fixed false beliefs even when confronted with facts, usually as a result of mental illness. Okay, the mental illness part I think is extreme. But yeah, maintaining fixed false beliefs even when confronted with facts. So we can think about people who ignore a lot of red flags. Again, a lot of the videos I saw were kind of dating related. But yeah, it's like, okay, ignoring red flags, assuming that just because someone has a conversation with you, that they like you, assuming that everything is all about us. This makes me think of like celebrities who think that a tweet is about them, right? They read into the context and they assume everything is about them. We'll get into celebrities in a little bit. But yeah, so kind of this negative side of delusion where you're presented with all this other information telling you something, but you still choose to believe what's not true. And I think delusion in relationships can be really sad. Things like gaslighting, people who are in abusive relationships who can't leave. Because I think we all like to judge, not like to, but I think in some way, shape, or form, when we hear about an abusive relationship situation, we always think like, well, why didn't they just leave, he or she? Like, why didn't they just like get out? Oh my God, if someone did that to me, I would never stay. But until you're in that situation, it's different. We are very quick to judge others and say that we wouldn't be the same in that situation. But that's something I'm going to argue later too. That like, sometimes we think we wouldn't do something, but if you were in that position, chances are you would do something similar. Okay, so we kind of have these two sides. We've got delusion in terms of faith, okay, being rooted in your goals, rooted in your self-belief, and, focusing so much on your goal and knowing in your heart that, like, you will make it happen or that it will manifest for you, Okay, and then we have the other side, which is like being delusional about, usually involves other people, and we're going to get into that. So back to my question, which is like, how delusional is too delusional, right? Because I think that having a little bit of delusion, again, when it's more on the faith side of things, yeah, love that, because you do have to fake it till you make it in a lot of cases. And I think that we think a lot. Sometimes you just need to act on it, and sometimes you need to pretend to be something that you want to be until you're there. Okay, so I have a few points about what I think how delusional is too delusional. So the first thing is when your delusion involves other specific people. Okay, so let's say you're trying to manifest the perfect guy, right? If you're thinking of a specific person in your head that you're trying to manifest, like, you can't control other people. That's like me sitting here and being like, okay, Michael B. Jordan is my husband. I know he is. He will find me. We will find each other. Like, whatever I'm going to do to manifest Michael B. Jordan into my life. Realistically, Vic, you're delusional. Okay? There, I said it. I admitted it. Yep, delusional. So, do I want to manifest my dream guy that I'll meet one day? Absolutely. Am I already manifesting it? And is it going to happen? Absolutely. But is it going to be Michael B. Jordan or someone else very, very specific that I think of? Not likely. So when you're manifesting, you have to, or when you're thinking about whatever thing in your life and you're being a little bit delusional, I don't believe it can involve other people because you can't control other people. Okay, so you have to think of it more in a general sense. That's point number one. How delusional is too delusional? Number two would be a lack of self-awareness. I think self-awareness is just so important. And I've met people who've talked about delusion and success and felt like they were on that path and they had been successful and thought, attributed it to just being in their own little world. But I think sometimes people, and I'll be kind of specific, like I've met people who have talked about this and mentioned delusion, but I felt talking to them that they lacked a bit of self-awareness, or the way they presented themselves wasn't super grounded. Like they almost felt like they were out of touch with reality in a bit. And I think, I don't know, it's hard for me to say. Like, I don't want to just be, maybe that's just my opinion or my first impression. Okay, it wasn't someone that I know super well, but it was like, that was my first impression was, this sense of, okay, this person's a bit delusional, but they also are on that side of, they think, everyone's obsessed with them, or they think that they can do no wrong almost. And I think that's a bit extreme. So lack of self-awareness, I think, is not good. I think if you're self-aware and a little bit delusional, it goes back to that sense of you almost know you're being delusional. Like you haven't actually lost touch with your awareness or the world around you. Okay, so you're self-aware, but you're playing into the, yep, this is what I believe, this is going to happen for me, these are my goals, and I'm manifesting them. That's it. Okay, so you believe it, and you're a little delusional in terms of, again, having faith, but you haven't lost that self-awareness piece. Okay, I'm hoping this is making sense. So my last point in terms of how delusional is too delusional is the people who are completely disconnected from reality. So this is like extreme. And I think a big example is celebrities. Okay, a lot of celebrities over time have been criticized for being out of touch with reality, a little bit tone deaf to a lot of things. But I think, in their defense, you're filthy rich. Imagine it. You're filthy rich. You can buy anything you want. Like, you're going to get bored at some point. And I think if you're that wealthy and famous, like, you're going to get to the point of being a bit delusional and out of touch. I think it can easily happen. I shouldn't say everyone does, But I do think that can definitely happen pretty easily. And again, this is going back to being quick to judge. We love to judge celebrities and be like, oh my God, like 2020, right? Celebrities who were complaining about COVID, we're all like, you get to live in like a resort and we're all stuck in our apartment. A lot of celebrities got heat for saying things like complaining not to see people, whatever, when we all know they live in their mansions and they'll be completely fine, right? So again, this sense of being out of touch. But I think in their defense, again, get some self-awareness. If you were that filthy rich, like, you would probably be doing the same things. And again, we could say, oh my God, I would never do that. I would never do that. But you probably would, okay? If you get rich, filthy rich, you probably would. Again, that kind of brings me back to the sense of grounding. Being delusional, but knowing how to ground yourself in things like presence, in things like meditation, in having moments to slow down, and again, to think about what you want. Like, I think this idea of delusion, which to me is like, again, blind faith, I think should be paired with things like meditation and practicing moments of presence and journaling and all of the things that are going to help manifest those things further. It's like writing in your journal, I am successful at this, or thank you, universe, for blessing me with XYZ. Again, even if it hasn't happened yet, that's a huge technique, is like thanking God or the universe or whatever you believe in for the thing that you want and are working towards. Because again, it's like tricking your subconscious mind into believing that you already have it, and that's kind of what makes things manifest. I'm reading a book right now. It's called The Power of the Subconscious Mind, and it talks a lot about this and different techniques for manifesting, again, the life that you want. So a lot of it to me goes with this positive idea of faith/delusion. And again, you guys know that intention is probably my favorite word, my most used word at this point. I don't think I've said it at all in this podcast yet, but here it is now. So intention, again, it's like, okay, I intend to have this. You're not saying, oh, I want this, or I'd love this, or this would be cool. No, I intend to have this. I believe that, the way you speak to yourself, the thoughts you put out there, how you carry yourself should be rooted in the person you want to be, right? And are striving to become, even if you're not there yet. And if you think that that's delusional, again, to me, positive delusion is really just faith, then yeah, I totally believe that. But if you are so delusional to a point of like being out of touch with reality, you are ignoring red flags in a relationship, or you are just thinking everyone's obsessed with you, or you're just completely unaware of what's going on in the world, like, I think those are more of the negative sides to this concept of delusion. Anyways, I think that's kind of all I had. I think it's an interesting topic, and just manifestation in general. I've seen a lot of different viewpoints on it. And again, my belief is just the thoughts you think, the way you speak to yourself, the way you carry yourself is like the most important, and that you should always be striving to think about, okay, who is the person I want to be and how would they act? Well, that's what I have to do. I wanted to say one other thing. I was going to do a little break, but I forgot. So if you're still listening, hello. And listen up. I have a proposition for you. So lately I've gotten a few DMs asking me for advice on different situations. And I love that. Okay, love that you guys feel like you could reach out and chat with me. So I want to put it out there that if you'd be interested in doing a quick 20-30 minute call, let's say 30-minute call, free of charge, to chat with me about something that you might want advice on, send me a DM and I will elaborate further. And yeah, that's all I've got for you. So have a great week wherever you are. Make sure you're a little bit delusional towards your goals, but don't forget the self-awareness. Don't leave that at home. And yeah, I'll chat with you guys next week.